Hana Choi stood at the viewport of the transport ship and watched the massive station grow larger in the distance. Sentinel-7 looked like a small city floating in space, its lights twinkling against the darkness. Somewhere inside that metal giant was the Galactic Defense Academy, and Hana was about to become the first human to walk its halls in 30 years. She wasn't special. That was the thing that bothered her most. The other cadets boarding this transport were the best of the best from their worlds. The tall Vrexian in the corner had won 3 planetary combat tournaments. The silver-skinned Quellan sitting near the pilot could read minds. The Takor cadet moved so fast that Hana could barely track her movements. And Hana? She was just a girl from Seoul who scored exactly 2 points above the minimum requirement on her entrance exam. No special powers, no genetic enhancements, no rich family with connections. She got in because Earth was allowed 1 cadet every few decades, and this year she happened to be the best Earth had to offer. It wasn't very impressive. The transport docked with a heavy clang. Hana grabbed her single bag and followed the other cadets into the station. The hallways were enormous, built for species much larger than humans. She felt like a child walking through a world designed for giants. "Human cadet, follow the blue line," a mechanical voice said from a speaker above her head. Hana looked down and saw a glowing blue line appear on the floor. She followed it while the other cadets went their own ways, following different colored lines to different processing areas. The blue line led her to a small room with white walls and harsh lighting. A Vrexian officer stood waiting, his massive frame filling half the space. He looked down at Hana with clear disappointment in his eyes. "You are Hana Choi from Earth," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir," Hana replied, standing as straight as she could. The officer still towered over her by at least 3 feet. "I am General Vorath, Supreme Commander of this academy." He picked up a data pad and scrolled through it with one clawed finger. "Your test scores are barely acceptable. Your physical measurements are below average for combat training. Your medical records show no enhancements, no modifications, no improvements of any kind." He set the pad down and looked at her. "Tell me, Cadet Choi, why are you here?" Hana met his eyes. "To learn, sir." "To learn," Vorath repeated, his tone making it clear what he thought of that answer. "The academy is not a school, Cadet. It is a forge. We break the weak and reshape the strong. Most species send us their champions. Earth sends us you." "Yes, sir," Hana said, because what else could she say? Vorath stared at her for a long moment. "You will fail. It is not a question of if, but when. When you do, remember that I told you this truth." Dismissed. Hana took her bag and left the room. The blue line led her to the cadet quarters, a long hallway with hundreds of doors. Her room was small but clean, with a bed, a desk, and a terminal built into the wall. She set her bag down and sat on the bed, letting out a long breath. "Welcome to the academy," she whispered to herself. The first week was harder than anything Hana had ever experienced. Physical training started before dawn. The other cadets ran faster, lifted heavier weights, and barely broke a sweat doing exercises that left Hana gasping for air. In combat simulations, she was knocked down so many times that the instructors started to ignore her. But Hana noticed things that others didn't. She watched how the Vrexian cadets always attacked the same way, using their strength but following predictable patterns. She saw how the Quellan cadets relied too much on their telepathy, becoming confused when facing species they couldn't read. She noticed that the Takor cadets moved fast but tired quickly, their speed coming at a cost. She started keeping notes. Not about tactics or weapons, but about people, how they moved, how they thought, what made them angry or confident or scared. She filled her terminal with observations about dozens of different species, learning to read body language that didn't even belong to bodies like hers. In her 3rd week, everything changed. The academy announced the first major trial. Each cadet would command a small fleet in a simulation, defending a civilian station from pirates. It was a standard test used for decades. Every successful cadet had passed it the same way. Overwhelming firepower, aggressive tactics, and quick elimination of all threats. Hana's turn came on a cold morning. She sat in the command chair of the simulator, looking at screens showing her small fleet and the approaching pirate ships. Behind her, instructors watched with crossed arms, clearly expecting her to fail. The pirates appeared on her screens. 15 ships, heavily armed, moving toward the civilian station. Standard doctrine said to meet them in combat. Destroy as many as possible before they reached the station. Hana opened a communication channel instead. This is Cadet Hana Choi. To approaching vessels. I would like to speak with your fleet commander. The instructors behind her muttered in confusion. One of them stepped forward. Cadet, you are supposed to engage the enemy, not chat with them. Please wait, sir, Hana said, not taking her eyes off the screen. A face appeared on her main display. The pirate commander was a Quellan, his silver skin scarred and weathered. You want to talk? Talk fast, human. We have work to do. I've been studying your fleet formation, Hana said. You're not one group. You're three separate factions forced to work together. Your ships aren't coordinating well. The red-marked vessels keep drifting away from the others. The pirate commander's face didn't change, but Hana saw his eyes narrow slightly. Attell. She was right. The red faction doesn't want to be here, Hana continued. They're criminals, but not killers. They need money, not a massacre. I'm offering them a way out. Stand down. Provide information about your partners and receive reduced charges. They can take that deal right now. You have no authority to make deals, the pirate said. I have authority to recommend mercy, Hana replied. And I'm recommending it to anyone smart enough to take it. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then 3 of the red-marked ships broke formation and turned away from the station. The pirate commander's face disappeared from the screen. The remaining ships started arguing over their communication channels, voices rising in anger. Hana listened carefully, picking up the tensions between the 2 remaining factions. She opened another channel. Blue faction, your allies just watched the red faction abandon you. How long before the green faction does the same? How long before you're facing my fleet alone? More silence. Then 5 blue-marked ships turned and fled. The green faction commander appeared on screen, rage clear on his face. Clever, human. But we're still 7 ships and you're only 5. We can still win. You can try, Hana said calmly. But why? The station has defensive weapons now that my fleet is here. You'll lose ships, maybe all of them, for a target that's no longer easy. Or you can leave now, regroup, and find an easier score somewhere else. No shame in recognizing when a job went bad. The pirate stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the speakers. You're an interesting one, human. I'll remember you. His ships turned and jumped to hyperspace. The simulation ended. The civilian station was untouched. 0 shots had been fired. Hana turned in her command chair to face the instructors. They were all staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to anger. General Vorath pushed through the crowd of instructors, his face dark with rage. That was not how this exercise is meant to be completed, Cadet. The objective was to defend the station, sir, Hana said quietly. The station is defended. No damage, no casualties. You failed to engage the enemy. I eliminated the threat without violence, sir. The result is the same. Vorath looked like he wanted to throw her out of the academy right then, but one of the other instructors, a older Quellan, stepped forward. General, with respect, her approach saved 3,247 lives according to the simulation data. It also cost 94% less resources than any previous successful attempt. It was cowardice, Vorath snapped. It was thinking, the Quellan instructor said softly. Hana stood at attention, waiting for judgment. Vorath glared at her for a long moment, then turned and left the room without another word. That night, lying in her bed, Hana's terminal chimed with a new message. It was encrypted, sent from an unknown source. She opened it carefully. The message contained only 5 words. Keep thinking differently. Hana stared at those words for a long time before finally going to sleep. She didn't know who T was, but something told her that her time at the academy had just become much more complicated. And somewhere in the shadows of Sentinel-7, a man named Taeyang smiled and marked Hana's file with a note. She's ready. The weeks after the simulation changed everything for Hana. Some cadets started watching her with interest. Others looked at her with open contempt. The instructors remained divided. Half thought she had found a clever solution. The other half agreed with General Vorath that she was a coward who didn't belong at the academy. Hana kept her head down and continued training. She still struggled with the physical exercises. She still got knocked down in combat practice, but she kept watching, kept learning, kept filling her terminal with observations about how different species thought and fought. 3 cadets started sitting with her at meals. The first was Jiho, a human like her but from Earth's Special Forces program. He was older, Maybe 30, with scars on his hands and a quiet way of moving. You made some people very angry, he told her during their first meal together. I noticed, Hana said. Good. That means you're doing something right. Jiho smiled slightly. The Academy teaches one way of fighting. The galaxy needs people who know other ways. The second cadet was Nari, a young woman who specialized in navigation. She was shy and rarely spoke, but she had an incredible gift for understanding space and movement. I liked what you did, she whispered to Hana one day. Not everyone has to die for things to work out. The third was Suji, a medical officer who came from a civilian background. She had joined the academy to learn how to save lives in war zones, but the constant focus on killing bothered her. They treat medicine like an afterthought here, she told Hana. Like the only thing that matters is making bodies fall down, not helping them stand up again. Together, the four of them formed an unlikely team. While other cadets competed to be the strongest or fastest, Hana's group focused on being the smartest. They studied together, trained together, and started finding ways to combine their different skills. The messages from T continued. Sometimes they came once a week, sometimes once a month. They were always short, always encouraging, always encrypted. Watch the instructors as much as the lessons, one said. The most important information is what they don't want to teach you, said another. Hana never replied to the messages. She didn't know how. But she followed the advice they contained, and slowly, she started to see patterns in the academy that others missed. 6 months into her training, Hana faced a combat trial. The rules were simple. Defeat an opponent twice your size in hand-to-hand combat. Most cadets approached it like a boxing match, trying to land the most powerful hits. Most cadets lost. Hana's opponent was a Vrexian named Durak, known for breaking bones during practice. He stepped into the ring with confidence, cracking his knuckles and grinning down at her. This will be quick, human, he said. Probably, Hana agreed. The match started. Durak charged forward like a bull, expecting to overwhelm Hana with his first attack. But Hana had spent months watching Vrexians fight. She knew they had a weak point at the back of their knees, where their thick armor-like skin was thinnest. She knew they always led with their right hand. She knew they expected fear. She didn't give him any. Hana dodged left instead of backing up. As Durak's massive fist passed by her face, she dropped low and kicked the back of his knee with everything she had. He stumbled. She rolled behind him and kicked the other knee. He dropped to one knee with a grunt of surprise. Before he could turn around, Hana jumped onto his back and wrapped her arm around his throat. Not to choke him, just to control him. Yield, she said quietly into his ear. Durak tried to stand, to throw her off, but his knees weren't working right. He tried to reach back and grab her, but she shifted her weight to stay out of reach. They struggled for 30 seconds before Durak finally slapped the mat 3 times. The signal to yield. Hana let go and stepped back. Durak stood slowly, rubbing his knees and staring at her with a mix of surprise and respect. How did you know? He asked. I watched you fight other people, Hana said simply. You're very strong, but you always do the same moves. Word of the fight spread quickly. More cadets started paying attention to Hana. Some asked for her advice. Others challenged her to prove she wasn't lucky. General Vorath watched from a distance, his expression growing darker with each of Hana's small victories. Then came the deep space training exercise. All cadets in their second semester had to complete a patrol mission in real space. It was meant to be routine, boring even. Fly to a sector, scan for problems, return to base. Most cadets completed it in 8 hours and spent the whole time complaining about how dull it was. Hana's patrol was different. She took Jiho, Nari, and Suji with her. They were flying through an empty sector when Nari spotted something on her sensors. There's a ship out there, she said. It's not moving. Derelict? Jiho asked. Maybe. The design looks like a merchant vessel. Nari frowned at her screens. But something's wrong with the damage patterns. Hana moved closer to look at the data. Nari was right. The ship had been hit by weapons fire, but the burn marks didn't match pirate guns or asteroids. They matched military weapons, the kind used by official forces. Standard protocol says we report it and wait for orders, Jiho said quietly. I know, Hana replied. She stared at the data for a long moment, thinking about the mysterious messages she had been receiving. Watch for what they don't want you to see, one had said. I want to board it, Hana decided. That's against protocol, Suji pointed out. I know that too. They docked with the damaged ship carefully. The airlock was still functional, which was strange for a ship that appeared abandoned. Hana and Jiho put on environment suits and crossed over, leaving Nari and Suji to monitor from their ship. The interior was dark and cold. Hana's suit lights cut through the shadows as they moved down empty corridors. Everything was too clean, too organized for a ship that had been attacked and abandoned. This doesn't feel right, Jiho whispered over the comm. Keep moving, Hana replied. They found the cargo bay. Inside were dozens of containers, all locked with military-grade seals. Hana used her Academy access code to open one. Inside were people, not bodies. Living people, unconscious but breathing, locked in cryocells. Hana counted 20 in the first container alone. She moved to the next container and found 20 more. What is this? Jiho asked, his voice tight. Hana checked the manifest on the container's computer. Her stomach dropped as she read it. These people weren't criminals. They were political activists, journalists, scientists who had asked uncomfortable questions about the Galactic Council's expansion policies. They were prisoners being transported to a black site. The Council did this, Hana said, her voice barely working. The Academy knows about it. They're all part of it. We need to leave, Jiho said urgently. If they know we found this, we're not leaving them, Hana interrupted. Hana, we can't save everyone. If we try, they'll just arrest us too. Then we make sure everyone knows before they can arrest us. Back on their ship, Hana worked quickly. She downloaded every file from the prison ship's computer. She documented everything with her suit camera. She gathered evidence that would be impossible to deny. Then she did something that would change her life forever. She encrypted everything with the best security. She knew and broadcast it across every communication channel she could access. Military frequencies, civilian networks, news organizations, even personal terminals of other cadets. Within minutes, her evidence reached thousands of people. Within an hour, millions. The response was immediate. Their ship's communication system exploded with incoming messages. Commands to return to base, threats of arrest, demands to explain themselves, and one message sent on a private encrypted channel that Hana recognized. Well done. Now the real work begins. Hana looked at Jiho, Nari, and Suji. They all looked terrified. They had just committed what the Academy would call treason. I'm sorry, Hana said quietly. I got you all into this. You gave us a choice, Jiho replied. We chose to stay. We should go back, Nari said, though her voice shook. Whatever happens, we face it together. The flight back to Sentinel-7 felt like it took forever. When they docked, security forces were waiting. They were arrested immediately, separated and taken to holding cells. Hana sat alone in her cell for hours, wondering if she had just destroyed her life and her friends' lives for nothing. Wondering if anyone would care about what she had found. Then she heard shouting in the hallway outside. The sound of multiple voices arguing. The heavy footsteps of people approaching her cell. The door opened. General Vorath stood there, his face twisted with rage. Behind him were council representatives and academy officials. Cadet Hana Choi, Vorath said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. You are charged with treason, mutiny, and unauthorized disclosure of classified information. The penalty for these crimes is execution. Your tribunal will begin in 1 hour. He smiled coldly. I told you that you would fail. I just didn't expect you to fail so spectacularly. The door closed, leaving Hana alone again. She sat in the darkness and waited for whatever would come next, knowing that she had done the right thing even if it cost her everything. The tribunal room was designed to intimidate. High ceilings, cold metal walls, and a raised platform where 5 judges sat looking down at the accused. Hana stood in the center of the room, still wearing her cadet uniform, with armed guards on either side. General Vorath presented the charges himself. His voice echoed through the chamber as he described Hana's crimes in detail. Unauthorized boarding of a secured vessel, theft of classified information, distribution of military secrets. Each charge carried a sentence of decades in prison. Together they meant death. The evidence is clear, Vorath declared. Cadet Choi acted without authorization, stole council property, and deliberately undermined galactic security. There can be only one verdict. The judges nodded along with his words. This wasn't a trial, Hana realized. It was a ceremony. They had already decided her fate before she even entered the room. Does the accused have anything to say? The head judge asked, though his tone suggested he didn't care about the answer. Hana opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, something strange happened. The lights in the room flickered. Then the main display screen behind the judges came to life, showing nothing but static. A voice spoke through the room's speakers, distorted and impossible to identify. Before you pass judgment, there is information you should see. Every screen in the tribunal room suddenly displayed the same thing: files, documents, financial records. Years of data scrolling past faster than anyone could read, but slow enough to recognize what it contained. Evidence of corruption, bribery, illegal weapons sales, and secret agreements between council members and criminal organizations. The judges stood in shock. Guards moved toward the control panels, trying to shut down the systems, but nothing worked. The voice continued. Cadet Hana Choi acted on intelligence provided by Earth's Deep Space Intelligence Division. She is not a rogue criminal. She is an asset who exposed crimes that you all knew about and chose to ignore. General Vorath roared in anger. This is a hack. Someone shut this down. You can't shut down what you don't control, the voice replied calmly. And you should be asking yourselves a different question. Not how someone hacked your systems, but how long they've been watching you. How many of your secrets they already possess. How many of your private conversations they've recorded. The room erupted in chaos. Council representatives shouted at each other. Judges demanded answers from security chiefs. Guards ran in confused circles, unsure what they were supposed to do. The voice spoke one more time. Release Cadet Choi and her companions immediately, or I will release everything. You have 5 minutes to decide. Then the screens went dark and the voice disappeared. In the terrible silence that followed, the head judge looked at General Vorath. Who was that? I don't know, Vorath admitted, and for the first time Hana saw fear in his eyes. Find out, the judge ordered. He looked down at Hana and she saw him calculating rapidly. Whatever he had planned to do before, the situation had changed. Cadet Choi, you are released pending further investigation. The charges remain, but enforcement is suspended until we understand the full situation. That's unacceptable, Vorath protested. Would you prefer I call their bluff and see what secrets get released, General? The judge asked coldly. Some of those files had your name in them too. Vorath went silent. Hana was escorted back to her quarters. Jiho, Nari, and Suji were already there, released from their cells at the same time. They hugged each other in relief, though they all knew this wasn't over. Who was that? Suji asked. Someone with power, Jiho said quietly. Real power, not the kind that comes from rank. Hana's terminal chimed. A new message appeared, encrypted as always. But this one was different. Instead of just text, it contained coordinates to a location deep in the station's maintenance levels and a time. Midnight. Hana showed the message to the others. It's from T. I think it's time I meet whoever's been helping us. It could be a trap, Nari pointed out. Maybe, Hana agreed. But if they wanted us dead, we'd be dead already. At midnight, Hana made her way through the empty corridors of the station. The coordinates led her to a forgotten storage area, the kind of place no one visited because there was nothing worth finding. Or so it seemed. A door opened as she approached, revealing a small room filled with computer equipment. And sitting in the middle of it all was a man who looked completely ordinary. He was maybe in his mid-30s with dark hair and glasses. He wore simple civilian clothes and had the kind of face you would forget 5 minutes after meeting him. He looked like someone who worked in an office, not someone who had just terrified the most powerful people in the galaxy. Hello, Hana, he said with a gentle smile. My name is Taeyang Kim. I'm sorry we couldn't meet sooner. Hana stared at him. This was the person who had been sending her messages for months. This normal-looking man was the ghost who had infiltrated the Academy's most secure systems. You're T, she said. I am. Taeyang gestured to a chair. Please sit. We have a lot to talk about. Hana sat carefully, still not sure if she should trust him. How did you do all that? The tribunal, the files, the voice? I've been preparing for a long time, Taeyang replied. Years, actually. I've been building access to systems across the galaxy, creating backdoors that even their security experts don't know about. When you need to have a conversation with powerful people, it helps to control the room. Why me? Hana asked. Why did you bring me to the Academy? Because you think differently, Taeyang said simply. Most people, when they see a problem, they see it only one way. The military way. Hit it until it breaks. But you look for other solutions. You talk instead of shooting. You understand people instead of just fighting them. He leaned forward, his expression growing serious. The galaxy is controlled by people who only know one language: force. They keep power by making everyone afraid. But fear only works if people believe there's no other choice. You show them there are always other choices. I'm just a cadet, Hana protested. No, you're much more than that. You're proof that humans think about problems in ways that other species don't. You're dangerous to them precisely because you're not a traditional warrior. Taeyang stood and walked to one of his computer screens. I've been building a network of people like you across the galaxy. People from small worlds, forgotten species, anyone who's tired of how things are. We're working to change the system from the inside. And you want me to help? I want you to go back to the academy, Taeyang said. Keep training, keep learning, keep showing people that there are other ways to solve problems. They'll be watching you now, which means they won't be watching me as closely. Hana thought about this. What you're doing, it's more than just exposing corruption. You're trying to change everything. Yes, Taeyang admitted. The current system is broken. It serves only the powerful and crushes everyone else. But I can't change it alone. I need people like you on the inside, people who can inspire others to demand better. It's dangerous. Very dangerous, Taeyang agreed. But you've already made your choice, haven't you? When you boarded that prison ship, when you released those files, you chose to stand up for what's right, even knowing it might cost you everything. Hana sat quietly for a moment, thinking about everything that had happened. About the prisoners she had found, about General Vorath's rage, about the fear she had seen in the judge's eyes when Taeyang revealed how much he knew. If I do this, she said slowly, I need you to promise me something. No more secrets between us. If we're partners, then we're really partners. I need to know the truth, all of it. Taeyang smiled, and it transformed his face from ordinary to warm. Agreed. No more secrets. Then I'm in, Hana said. Over the next hour, Taeyang explained his network in detail. He had operatives on dozens of worlds in multiple militaries, even inside the council itself. Some knew about each other. Most didn't. It was the only way to keep the network safe. He taught Hana how to use encrypted communication, how to recognize surveillance, and how to pass information without being caught. He showed her files about corrupt officials at the academy, including several she had never suspected. Your main target is someone you haven't met yet, Taeyang said. Commander Hyun Park. He's being transferred to the academy next week to replace Vorath as Supreme Commander. Is he better than Vorath? No, Taeyang said grimly. He's much worse. Vorath is just a bully who doesn't like humans. Park is something else entirely. He's part of a shadow organization inside the council. People who want to make the current system even more controlling. And he's very, very smart. What do you want me to do about him? Watch him. Learn his patterns. Find his weaknesses. Taeyang looked at her seriously. But be careful. Park isn't like the others. He knows about people like me. He knows about intelligence operations. If he suspects you're working with me, he won't hesitate to make you disappear. Hana felt a chill run down her spine. I understand. Good. Taeyang handed her a small device. This is a secure communicator. Use it only in emergencies. If something happens to me, it will guide you to people who can help. Is something going to happen to you? I hope not, Taeyang said with a slight smile. But I've been playing this game for a long time. Eventually, they'll figure out who I am. When that happens, I need to know that the work will continue without me. Commander Hyun Park arrived at the academy with little ceremony. Unlike General Vorath, who had been loud and aggressive, Park was quiet and careful. He was in his late 40s with graying hair and a calm expression that never seemed to change. He spoke softly, moved gracefully, and watched everything with dark, intelligent eyes. Hana didn't trust him from the first moment they met. Cadet Choi, Park said when he called her to his office during his first week. I've read your file with great interest. You've had quite an eventful year. Yes, sir, Hana replied, standing at attention. Please sit. Park gestured to a chair. When Hana sat, he leaned back in his own chair and studied her. You're controversial. Some instructors think you're brilliant. Others think you're dangerous. What do you think? It was a trap question. Hana knew it immediately. I think I'm learning, sir. A diplomatic answer. Park smiled slightly. General Vorath thought you were a problem that needed to be removed. I disagree. I think you're exactly what the Academy needs. Someone who thinks creatively, who isn't bound by traditional approaches. This was wrong. Everything about this conversation felt wrong. Taeyang had warned her that Park was dangerous, but she hadn't expected him to pretend to be her ally. "Thank you, sir," Hana said carefully. "I want you to know that you have my support," Park continued. "Earth cadets face unique challenges here. If you ever need guidance or protection, my door is always open." Hana left his office feeling more worried than before. Park was playing a game, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Over the next months, Hana continued her training while secretly working with Taeyang. She passed information about suspicious activities at the academy. She helped identify cadets who were being recruited into illegal operations. She learned more about the corruption that ran through every level of the military structure. But something bothered her. Several times, operations that Taeyang had planned went wrong. People who should have been safe were arrested. Information that should have been secure was leaked. Someone in Taeyang's network was betraying them. "I know," Taeyang told her during one of their secret meetings. "I'm trying to find the leak, but whoever it is, they're very good at hiding." "Could it be someone close to you?" Hana asked. "It's possible," Taeyang admitted. "Trust is the hardest part of this work. You never know for sure who's really on your side." The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Suji, working in the medical center, noticed something strange in the patient records. Several cadets had been treated for injuries that didn't match their official reports. When she dug deeper, she found evidence of a black market operation running inside the academy, selling military weapons to unauthorized buyers. Hana brought this information to Taeyang. He investigated and discovered the operation led to a logistics coordinator named Minho Seo. But when they prepared to expose him, Taeyang stopped her. "Minho is small," he explained. "He's being used by someone higher up. If we expose him now, the real criminals will just find someone else. We need to follow the trail to the top." They traced financial records and communication logs. The trail led higher and higher through the military structure until finally, they found the person at the center of everything, Yuna Bak, a council security director. And Yuna Bak was human, from Earth, someone who had betrayed her own people for power. "She's been selling information about Earth's defenses to the council for years," Taeyang said, his voice tight with anger. "She's the reason so many of our operations have failed. She's been feeding our secrets to our enemies." "We have to expose her," Hana said. "It's not that simple. She has immunity as a council director. We need evidence so clear that even the council can't ignore it." They spent weeks gathering that evidence, building a case that would be impossible to deny. But they needed to be careful. One mistake would alert Yuna, and she would disappear forever. Taeyang created a plan. They would feed Yuna false information about a fictional Earth intelligence operation. Something threatening enough that she would have to act on it. When she did, her actions would expose her illegal activities. The plan worked perfectly. Too perfectly. Yuna moved against the fictional threat exactly as Taeyang predicted. But in doing so, she revealed something terrible. She had an informant inside Taeyang's network. Someone very close to the operation had been feeding her information all along. And that someone was Commander Hyun Park. Hana discovered the truth by accident. She was in the communications center, using her academy access to trace one of Yuna's encrypted messages. When she saw the sender's identifier, it was Park's personal code. She felt like ice water had been poured over her. Park wasn't just aware of Yuna's crimes. He was her partner, working with her to build something even worse than the current corrupt system. Hana tried to contact Taeyang immediately, but he didn't respond. She tried again. Nothing. Then her communicator received a message. It wasn't from Taeyang. It was from Park. "I know you've discovered the truth, Cadet Choi. I have your friend. If you want to see Taeyang alive again, you will surrender yourself, your team, and all evidence you've collected. You have 24 hours. The message included a video. It showed Taeyang in a cell, unconscious but breathing. Park's voice spoke over the image. "He's been looking for my traitor for months. He never suspected it was me because I made him trust me. I've been inside his network since the beginning, feeding information to Yuna, helping her stay ahead of his investigations. And now it's over." Hana felt sick. She called Jiho, Nari, and Suji to her room immediately. When they arrived, she showed them the message. "We have to rescue him," Jiho said immediately. "That's what Park expects," Hana replied. "He set a trap. If we charge in trying to save Taeyang, we'll all be captured. So what do we do? Nari asked, her voice shaking. Hana paced the small room, thinking hard. Park expected her to act like a soldier, to mount a rescue operation. But she wasn't a soldier. She was someone who thought differently, who found unexpected solutions. We don't rescue him, Hana said slowly. What? Suji looked shocked. Park wants us to try to save Taeyang because then he can capture us quietly and make us all disappear. But what if we don't play his game? What if we do something he doesn't expect? Like what? Jiho asked. Hana looked at her friends. We tell everyone. Everything. Every piece of evidence we have about Park, about Yuna, about the corruption and the weapons dealing and the murdered prisoners. We broadcast it everywhere to everyone right now. That will start a war, Nari said. It's already a war, Hana replied. We've just been fighting it in secret. Park thinks we're afraid, that we'll sacrifice everything to save one person. He thinks we'll be quiet to protect ourselves. We're going to show him he's wrong. Over the next hours, they worked frantically. They gathered every piece of evidence they had collected over the months. They organized it, verified it, and prepared it for mass distribution. Hana recorded a video message. She spoke directly to the camera, her voice steady despite her fear. My name is Hana Choi. I'm a cadet from Earth. I'm not a warrior. I'm not a spy. I'm just someone who believes we can do better. The people who control our galaxy want you to believe that change is impossible, that corruption is inevitable, that you're powerless. They want you afraid. But I've learned something at this academy. Fear is a choice. Justice is a choice. Right now, you have a choice. She told them about Taeyang, about Park's betrayal, about everything they had discovered. She held nothing back. They're holding a good man hostage because he dared to tell the truth. They think we'll surrender to save him. They think we'll be quiet to protect ourselves. Show them they're wrong. Then she released everything. Every file, every piece of evidence, sent to every communication channel they could access. Military networks, civilian systems, news organizations, personal terminals across dozens of worlds. Within minutes, the galaxy exploded with information. And in his cell, Taeyang woke up and smiled. He knew exactly what Hana had done. And he knew it was the right choice, even if it cost them both everything. Park stood in his command center, watching his carefully built plans collapse around him, as billions of people across the galaxy suddenly learned the truth. His face remained calm, but his hands shook with rage. Bring me Cadet Choi, he ordered. Now. But Hana wasn't hiding. She was walking through the main corridor of the academy, surrounded by dozens of cadets from every species and world. They had heard her message. They had seen the evidence, and they had made their choice. The war in the shadows had just become very public, and nothing would ever be the same again. The academy was chaos. Cadets refused to follow orders. Instructors demanded investigations. Council representatives arrived in emergency sessions trying to control the situation, but it was too late. The information Hana had released was spreading across the galaxy, faster than anyone could stop it. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. Military units began questioning their commanders. News organizations ran stories about corruption that had been hidden for decades. The carefully maintained power structure was cracking, and everyone could see it happening in real time. Park watched it all from his command center, his calm mask finally slipping. He had spent years building his network, positioning himself to take control of a new, more authoritarian system. And now a single cadet from Earth had destroyed everything in one night. Send security to arrest Cadet Choi, he ordered his remaining loyal officers, whatever it takes. But when security forces arrived at Hana's location, they found something they hadn't expected. She wasn't alone. Jiho stood beside her, along with Nari and Suji. And behind them were 50 other cadets from every species, every world, every background. They formed a wall of bodies, silent and unmoving. Stand aside, the security commander ordered. No one moved. This is your final warning. Stand aside or you'll all be arrested. A Vrexian cadet stepped forward. His name was Durak, the same one Hana had defeated months ago in combat training. We've seen the evidence, he said in his deep voice. We know what Commander Park has done. We're not moving. The security commander looked at the faces surrounding him. Dozens of cadets, all willing to be arrested, all choosing to stand with Hana. He made a decision. I can't arrest them all, he said into his communicator. Park's voice crackled back, tight with rage. Then shoot them. The security commander looked at his team. They looked back at him. No one raised their weapons. No, sir, the commander said quietly. I won't give that order. Park screamed something through the communicator, but the security commander turned it off. In his command center, Park realized he was losing control. His officers were questioning orders. His security forces were refusing to follow commands. Everything was falling apart. He made one final, desperate decision. He would execute Taeyang publicly, right now, as a warning to everyone who dared to resist. He would show them what happened to people who challenged authority. Park went to Taeyang's cell personally, bringing a small team of his most loyal guards. He found Taeyang sitting calmly, as if he had expected this. You've lost, Taeyang said simply. No, Park replied. You've lost. When I kill you, your network will fall apart. Your followers will scatter. Everything you built will mean nothing. You still don't understand, Taeyang said with a slight smile. I'm not the network. I'm just one person. The network is everyone who believes things can change. Every person who saw Hana's message and decided to stand up. You can kill me, but you can't kill an idea. Park aimed his weapon at Taeyang's head. Watch me. But before he could fire, the door to the cell exploded inward. Not with military weapons or tactical charges. It just opened, the electronic locks releasing all at once. Hana stood in the doorway, but she wasn't alone. Behind her were hundreds of cadets filling the corridor as far as Park could see. They weren't armed. They weren't threatening. They were just standing there watching him. You can shoot Taeyang, Hana said quietly. You can kill me. You can try to kill every person in this corridor. But there are billions watching right now. Every shot you fire creates 1,000 more like us. It's over, Commander. Park looked at his guards. They were young, trained to follow orders, but they were also looking at the faces in the corridor. Faces of their friends, their classmates, people they had trained beside for years. Fire on them, Park ordered. The guards didn't move. One of them, a young Quellan, slowly lowered his weapon. I'm sorry, sir. I can't. The others followed. Weapons lowered one by one, until Park was the only person still holding a gun. He stood there for a long moment, his weapon shaking in his hand, staring at Hana with pure hatred. Then slowly, he lowered it. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is, Hana replied. Park was arrested by his own security forces. Unibak tried to flee but was captured at a transport station, surrounded by protesters who recognized her face from Hana's broadcast. Within days, dozens of corrupt officials resigned or were removed from power. The council didn't fall immediately. Systems that large never do. But it transformed. New representatives, many from worlds that had never had a voice before, took positions of authority. Investigations began into decades of hidden crimes. Military doctrine started to change, incorporating ideas about conflict resolution that didn't always involve violence. Hana didn't graduate as a traditional officer. The academy, recognizing that the old ways had failed, created a new position, liaison between Earth intelligence and the reformed council. She would work with Taeyang to build systems that prevented corruption from taking root again. Taeyang, recovering from his imprisonment, met with Hana in his hidden office. He looked tired but satisfied. You did well, he told her. I almost got you killed, Hana replied. You saved me by refusing to play their game. That took more courage than any rescue mission. Taeyang smiled. I chose you because you think differently. You proved me right. What happens now? Hana asked. Now the real work begins. Changing systems is harder than breaking them. We'll need to build new ways of doing things, train people to think beyond just military solutions, and constantly watch for corruption trying to creep back in. That could take years. It will take generations, Taeyang agreed. But we've started something that won't stop. You've shown people that change is possible. That's the hardest part. Over the following months, Hana worked with reformed council members to create new training programs at the academy. Instead of just teaching cadets how to fight, they taught them how to think, how to question, how to find solutions that didn't require violence. Jiho became an instructor in tactical analysis, teaching cadets to understand their enemies as people, not just targets. Nari developed new navigation protocols that helped coordinate humanitarian missions as efficiently as military ones. Suji created medical programs that focused on saving lives in conflict zones, not just patching up soldiers to send back to battle. The academy changed slowly, but it changed. New cadets arrived, and instead of hearing that humans were weak, they heard stories about the cadet from Earth who changed everything by refusing to accept that things couldn't be different. Years later, new instructors told cadets about Hana Choi and Taeyang Kim. They explained how two people, neither of them traditional warriors, had transformed the galaxy by understanding one simple truth. The most dangerous person in any conflict isn't the strongest or the fastest or the best armed. It's the person who refuses to stop thinking, who questions everything, and who believes that another way is possible. Students learned that Hana wasn't special because of her physical abilities or her combat skills. She was special because she saw problems differently than everyone else. She talked when others wanted to fight. She saved lives when others counted victories. She thought when others just followed orders. And Taeyang, the ghost who became real, taught them that true power doesn't come from controlling people but from empowering them. That the best intelligence operative isn't the one who knows the most secrets, but the one who helps people see the truth. The galaxy wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. Corruption still existed. Wars still happened. People still suffered. But now there was something that hadn't existed before. Hope that things could change. Hana stood at the same viewport where she had first seen Sentinel-7 years ago. She was older now, no longer just a cadet but someone who had helped reshape the galaxy. She watched new transport ships arrive, carrying new cadets who would learn new ways of thinking. Taeyang joined her at the viewport. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the future arrive. "Do you think it will last?" Hana asked quietly. "That depends on them," Taeyang replied, nodding toward the arriving cadets. "Every generation has to choose what kind of galaxy they want. We've given them tools and ideas. What they do with them is up to them." "That's not very reassuring." "No," Taeyang agreed, "but it's honest. Change isn't permanent. It has to be chosen again and again by every person every day." Hana thought about that, about the choices she had made, about the risks she had taken, about the people who had stood with her when everything seemed impossible. She wasn't an officer, someone had written in a history file about her. Just a cadet from Earth, and someone else had added, "And that's why the top feared him." The pronouns were confused, mixing Hana and Taeyang together, but somehow it was right. They weren't one person, they were a movement. She was the visible face challenging authority in daylight. He was the invisible hand, working in shadows to support her. Together, they represented what humans brought to the galaxy, the ability to imagine a better world and the courage to build it. More cadets arrived at the academy. More people learned to think differently. More voices joined the conversation about how to build a better galaxy. And in a small office hidden in the maintenance levels of Sentinel-7, a new encrypted message appeared on a terminal. It was addressed to a young cadet from a small world, someone who had just arrived at the academy and was feeling lost and overwhelmed. The message was simple. Keep thinking differently. You're more important than you know. Somewhere on the station, Taeyang smiled. The work continued. The future was being built, one choice at a time.